Welcome, everybody, to Bridging the Gap podcast, If These Walls Could Talk. I'm here with Zita, our co-host, and we've got a guest on today. We've got Robyn Jones on from Piatt Sotheby's. She's going to be our guest. We're going to have a great conversation. Looking forward to it. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So in this conversation, we're going to be having some background about Robyn, what she does and how she does it. I'm interested to learn on the realty side what makes her tick and where we go from here. So Robyn, if you could, tell us your story. What do you do and how do you do it?
Sure. So I am a real estate advisor with Piatt Sotheby's International Realty. I'm based in our Swickley, Pennsylvania office. Born and raised in Swickley. Went to school in the South, though. Spent some time in Mississippi and Louisiana and California before moving back. And I have married with 3 children and a crazy life. It's gone, it's chaotic, but I love it. And I work with a great team of people at Sotheby's and really love the Pittsburgh market and being able to sell in my own hometown.
Yeah. So interesting for me, and you guys may see this on the realty side. So I'm curious, when you're talking to people who have maybe moved away and then are coming back, like what's the percentage of your clients that are people that have been here, grown up here, that have moved and found that the grass isn't always greener? Like, what does that look like?
I mean, I think for me in Swickley, it's a large number.
Is it? Okay.
Especially, during COVID, there was a ton of people I knew growing up who moved back. But I feel like there's so many deep roots here, especially just in Pittsburgh in general. So, the majority of my clients are people I went to high school with or their family members or somebody who lived here, moved away and decided that, they wanted to come back because it's just it's so affordable. There's so many opportunities here. So I would say that's a big part of my business are people who either came here and never left or moved away and want to come back.
Okay. Interesting. Zita, do you see the same thing?
I do. I would say I get a lot of people that have born and raised here. They were transferred for a job and they're trying to get back home.
Okay.
This is home for them. Of all the places they've been across the country, Pittsburgh always feels like their best roots, right? So because they love the seasons, they love our school systems, and they find that the consistent feedback I get is that everyone loves the people here. That they feel like the people are so personable and so friendly. And then, of course, the sports part of it is a big thing. You go somewhere else, you're like, it's just not the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's a big portion of my business as well.
Yeah, so it's interesting when we host people that come in for a Steelers game and we take them to a tailgate and how crazy different it is from anything that they're used to. I mean, it's a culture in and of itself. I mean, I think it helps for Pittsburgh that we have the same colors for all of our teams, right? So it's hard to not have black and gold on, but when you go into a Steelers tailgate, it's just a unique experience. So we just had guys that were in from Dallas for Top Contractor School. They came in to do a meeting with us, but we went to the game and they were Dallas fans, and it was the Dallas game that we lost. But interestingly enough, they had the absolute best time with the experience because it doesn't happen like that in Dallas, they said. Like it was completely crazy for them. And we went through some of the tailgates and they saw the decorated vehicles and, the big vans and, so definitely a unique experience. So, I mean, if you grew up with that and you went to Quaker Valley, is that?
Which was also black and gold.
Yeah. So local, right? So hard not to fit in and have that same color theme. And so, when you go away from that, it makes you want to come back to it. So
Absolutely.
When I think you'd be hard pressed to find another team that you can go to pretty much any city and find a Steeler bar.
Right.
I mean, how many other teams can you say that with?
Yeah. So tell us this. So when you first started out, I was looking on your website. So initial sales in year 1, 13 homes. Tell us about, the starting, what made you go into realty? What does that look like from a foundational standpoint to get you to where you are now?
So when I first started in real estate, my husband and I had just purchased our first home, and we didn't have the greatest experience. And we, at that point, felt like we knew everything about the process, but then leaving it going, no, it didn't feel right. Something didn't feel right. So at that point, I was working in marketing and kind of wanting a change. We were getting ready to start a family, and I didn't really want the typical 8 to 5. I wanted some flexibility. So I said, you know what, we're going to try this. We'll see. So I studied, passed the test on the first try, and just sort of jumped in with both feet. I was very, very fortunate. My first year, I had a great year. A lot of family and friends trusted me to work with their transactions, and I had some wonderful mentors that, to this day, I mean, Kathy Barge is a fantastic agent and one of my greatest mentors. So she helped me really get my footing. And then each year we've grown year after year. The flexibility is great. It's not always as flexible as I think we as agents think going into it.
Right.
But being able to set my own schedule, especially with a family, has been ideal for me. So
Yeah. So this is interesting. So going over to Zita with Lux 10. So, if you think about, you just mentioned having a mentor and somebody that's helped you along the way. Like, so I think foundationally with Lux 10, like one of the values there is it's a platform for realtors. It's a platform for pros or contractors that are in the business. And I think kind of where you marry together at the consumer space is that it gives consumers or home buyers an opportunity to engage both and have that relationship that matures, right? So if you have a list of contractors that are doing work for your clients, then you can tag that on the Lux profile. So Zita, I'm interested to hear, like on the Lux side, so you've got a diverse group of realtors that are in the puzzle. Where does that fall from a mentorship standpoint? Like, where do you see value in that?
I think that it gives customer choice, right? Because I think that a brand is something that each one of us represents proudly. But I think that we all bring something different to the table. So there's not one set way to do anything.
Right.
And I think to have the opportunity for us as realtors to be able to network with each other and learn from each other, which is one of the exciting parts of the platform that we want to bring more to the forefront. Where real estate agents can really learn and grow from each other and having that diverse background. So I think it gives us the opportunity to grow, but it also gives the customer the choice, because I think a lot of times that customers, they might say, hey, I'm going to call Robyn because she's a great realtor. And then they're like, what company do you work for again? And then that's just a bonus. That's a bonus because you're represented by a great brand.
Right.
But I think a lot of clients don't really know who we each work for. Essentially, they're looking for the right agent.
Right.
So I think for all of us, it's about, creating our own brand, which is so important, I think, in our industry, to create that brand awareness of who we are individually as agents that are supported and backed by a great real estate company.
Right.
So for us, it's about having all of that available to the customers coming to the platform to find a contractor and then find an agent. It's finding those right connections regardless of what the name of the company is behind it.
Right.
well, and a lot of it is referral. I mean, if
Yeah.
my clients, the first thing they do when they move to the area or they come to the area is text me, who do I use for this? Who do you use for this?
Right.
Send me some recommendations. So I think most agents have a list of recommended providers and contractors. And so what Lux 10's been able to do is kind of pull that all together into one central area where I can find additional resources, and then I can share those with my clients, and my clients can find, people can find me through the source as well. So I think it's really smart.
Yeah, and I think as you develop a relationship, so before the show we were talking about relationships with your clients, and they have choices, right? They could go to any realtor, but they do business with you because of the relationship that you develop over time and that you've worked on. So I'm interested to hear, and maybe you can give me some insight to this, but what was the longest relationship that you developed over the sales process with somebody? Like, so what was the longest turnaround between the first time you met somebody to when they actually closed on a property?
I would say probably, I did work with a client for about 2 years.
Okay.
From first meeting to trying to find the right community, the right home, very specific needs, very specific price range. And we just kept that relationship going for the 2 years and then successfully found them a home. It doesn't always take that long.
Yeah.
I actually tell clients going out the first time, we might find something the very first day, or it might be a year from now. And it's, I'm going to advise you based on what you're telling me you need and I'm seeing, so you're finding the right home. But to try to understand that there's a process to it. And some people will be great if they walk in the house the first time and go, this is it. And some need to see 4 or 5
multiple
houses.
to compare,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
it's really
Benchmark, if you will.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as we talk about this podcast, it's if these walls could talk. So I'm curious to hear some of the stories of you doing a walkthrough with somebody who is shopping for a home. Like, how often is it where you're part of a conversation with them, and almost like a mediator, right? Of, hey, I like this space, but I would take this wall down. I would do this. I would paint this. Like, what's that look like? What are some of the stories?
And you probably see a lot of that in Swickley because the
do.
homes are older and
right.
saying, like, I want the town of Swickley. It's so special.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
great place to be. But they might look at the homes and say, but I'm a little challenged because it's just an older style. But that's part of the charm of what Swickley is. It's a lot of the charm of what
Absolutely,
it is. But
absolutely. And yeah, we do. That's actually one of my favorite things to do when I'm touring a home. I grew up, my father was an accountant, my mom was an interior designer.
Okay.
So I've lived in almost every borough in the Quaker Valley School District because we lived in one, we do some renovations and updates, and then my mom would run another project.
Yeah.
So I have to say I'm a little bit like that as well. The house we live in was 4 apartments when we purchased it, one of the
Okay.
oldest houses in town, and we gutted it. But because of that, I have a bit of an understanding of what it's going to take. Obviously not fully, I'm not a structural engineer or anything, but I'm able to advise my clients a little bit going through of like, oh, well, if this were me, I would, convert this into a bigger bathroom, or I would put a closet here, I would knock this wall out, or, at the end of the day, almost anything can be done with the right contractor and the right amount of money.
Right.
But that to me is fun. I love being able to go through, especially if a client doesn't have the vision. We see so many homes and we've seen so many things with new construction and renovation. So we know some of the things that you can do and some of the latest styles and trends and materials to use, and our clients don't. So when I can walk through a home and say, oh, if I could get my hands on this house,
Right.
this is what I would
Here's
do.
what it would
Yeah.
look like.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful. And I think with our clients, I try to say, most of the time you're not going to find a 100% perfect house for you.
Right.
But if we can find something maybe 80% and the rest of it, we make changes over
Tweak,
time.
right.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I always tell them, don't do it immediately either. Move in, live in the space, see what it feels like, see what your day-to-day routine's like, because how you work now in your current home and how the flow might be in your new home could be completely different.
Right.
And you may get in and 3 months later say, I'm really glad we didn't tear down that wall.
Yeah.
I like having the kids have their own room now to entertain themselves. So I say, give it a little bit of time and then, determine the new lifestyle and what you want to do.
Yeah. Zita, what about you? Walking through, like, what's the craziness that you hear?
I mean, I don't know that it's crazy, essentially. It's just really, I think that
Like,
sometimes
what's
people
a
just.
big dream, right? Like,
Yeah, I
someone's
think
like,
a lot of people
I'm-"
get overwhelmed, right? Because I think that because of our location, there's not a ton of land to
Right.
really build something new, right? And if someone wants something with character, charm, trees, sidewalks, some of those tend to be in those older communities, and with that comes remodeling
Right.
in a lot of those. So it's really, to Robyn's point, just having that as an agent, having an eye to give some direction, give some ideas where people are like, that was a really great idea. I never thought of that. And don't worry, I have a whole list of contractors I can refer to you
Right.
that are amazing, right? So, and here you go, right? That's the, for us, that's the beauty of having Lux 10. But, for customers going through, they 100% can get overwhelmed with what needs to be done. So I hear a lot of that of like, oh my gosh, the kitchen needs done, or the bathrooms, or, I'd love to put a pool in. Do you think a pool will fit back here? So you get all of those things. And I think a lot of our clients really lean into us to give them guidance. Do you think it's possible here? And what do you think? I mean, I'm sure you get this a lot, Robyn. What do you think that will cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, so the last thing we want to do is be quoting prices
Right.
and it not be the right price. But I think we probably have a pretty good idea at this point to say,
Ballpark. Yeah.
yes,
I'm going to get you
It's usually going to be
close.
more than what
Yeah.
you think. Or sometimes people think, oh, this is going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars, and say, not really, with the right contractors in here. And I think you could probably modify this
Right.
to do a
and
couple
I think
things.
too, like the relationship not only with your client, but also the contractors that are going to be able to help them is important, right? So you've mentioned earlier on the show, you have those relationships that you've developed with the contractors over time. So you become familiar with the work that they do. It almost makes it easier because you're a team at that point, right? So it's not just you by yourself that's working with this relationship. You have everybody that's on the team, the rising tide floats all ships. The same thing there. Like the more that you can invest into that relationship with a group of contractors that you work with, the better that they're going to be able to help your clients. They're going to understand what their expectations are from the conversations that you've had with them that you can relay, and then the relationship that they start to develop from there. So.
Yeah, and I think the expectations are important. So with the contractors I work with, they know, when I call and say, I really need to get you to look at this quickly and give me a quote for whatever reason, they're willing to do that. When I recommend them to clients, I know they're going to do a good job. I know that the craftsmanship is going to be excellent. And so I know that my clients are going to come back later and say, that was a really good experience. Or if they eventually sell the house, I know that I'm trusting the work that was done.
Right.
So it's sort of the long game too. It's not just I want my client to be happy right now with work, but then 10 years from now, if I go to sell their house, I want to know who did the work
Right.
and that it was done well. And so investing in those relationships with the contractors, and they invest in us, it makes it, you're able to set better expectations and have better results for your clients.
Yeah. So I think for us at Top Contractor School, like I talk to contractors every day, and there's a lot of folks that are in that kitchen and bath or like home remodel, doing additions. Like probably in my top 5 challenges that I hear all the time on a regular basis are client expectations, right? Because they're so dynamic. They're across the board. Like nobody's cookie cutter. So, you may have a certain taste where Zita's taste is completely opposite. How does that contractor then go in and facilitate what that work is? And, I think that's really kind of that ongoing relationship that they develop with that client, and how they understand what their vision is, and, where they go from there. So I see it as not really a challenge. I see it as more of a conversation, but I think with like change orders and right. So, as work starts, it's like, oh, hey, I want to do this, or do we have enough money in the budget for that? Or you guys probably watch some of the home shows that they're doing the remodels on, and it seems like always there's a beam that costs $4,000 that wasn't
Right.
anticipated.
Right.
And, so that client expectation, I think, changes as the work goes. But yeah, I think that's pretty routine where that's the case. But yeah, I think that relationship drives everything.
The interesting thing is that I find that when I send a recommendation, I'm sure, Robyn, you're in the same situation where if I send a recommendation for a contractor to one of my clients, I know that they're going to be happy, right? Because these are, contractors that I have built relationships with. And I think each one of us, we want to know that we're sending someone that complements us into the house that we just sold to our clients. Or, we get people that reach out to us that are well past. They've been in a house 4 or 5 years and say, we're thinking about now remodeling the kitchen, right? Do you have a recommendation? I get messages like that all the time from my clients. They're ready now.
Yeah.
They weren't ready when they moved in because they're getting settled.
Right.
And like you said, Robyn said, that live in it a little bit, see what you want, and make sure you're going to stay there, right? And once they decide to stay there and they love the house, they're like, we're not ready to sell yet, but we're thinking about remodeling. That's wonderful. And I'm glad you thought of me whenever you were going to remodel, because I have some great recommendations for you. But to feel that comfortable to come back and ask one of us for a recommendation.
Yep.
I mean, that's what it's all about, that trust and that relationship building, and knowing that we're sending someone qualified and really great into the home. That's what helps us with referrals, right? And it's amazing to have really great contractors that we can refer to that.
Well, it becomes part of your brand in essence, right? I mean, you're promoting their business because they've done well by you in the past. They have quality work. They've done a great job in interacting with your clients. I think that's all part of your image and your brand that you put out into the marketplace. So.
Right, and I think there's that other piece of respecting each other's times, right? Like, so to call a contractor and say, hey, can you go out there and check a roof for me, or can you go and check this or that, a handyman type of job. They want to know that we're not just utilizing their time to get a bid. And then for the person that's buying the house, or as the agent with the inspection, not just calling someone to say, hey, can you go over there and do that? It's respecting the other person to say, listen, if we're going to send a recommendation, this is someone that legitimately needs a roof, or that legitimately is looking to do this work, and you have the opportunity to earn their business, right? So it's about going in there with the right mindset. They need a roof, or maybe they don't need a roof, and you're not going to get every roof, right? Or you're not going to get every kitchen remodel, whatever it might be. So I think that at least that any contractors that we're sending in, they know that there's a really good chance they can get that job, but respecting their time, that it's not just, hey, we need a bid,
Yeah.
right? Or saying up front, listen, I just need a bid. Are you willing to help me out with that? Because you send them enough business.
Yeah.
Right.
So you respect each other, knowing that not every job is going to
Right.
turn into a full-blown remodel,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my clients when we close on a home, you know, I don't go anywhere. I'm your neighbor.
Right.
I live here too.
Yeah.
And I want to be your resource. So if you need somebody, contact me. And sometimes I'll get a text a few months later, like, oh, so sorry to bother you. Can you refer? I'm like, it's not a bother. I would rather you came to me,
Right.
and I can share who I've had great experiences with, and maybe even who I have not had great experiences with, and help them avoid some of that. So, you know, when a client comes back to me a year or two later and asks me for a referral for a different type of contractor, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Well, because they've thought of you, right?
Yeah.
They remembered you. They want to work with you again. They want to have that engaged relationship. So
Yeah, they know I'm here to
they're
help
going to
them.
call you when they're going to sell the house. You want to make sure they
Yeah.
make a good investment
Right.
and that you get good
It was
guidance.
done well.
Because
Yeah.
well, it's the last thing. I mean, that's happened to us, right? We go in and someone has spent a boatload of money on a remodel, and you're
Right.
like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
You know, that happens. So that's when the walls talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. When you go, oh, I
So-
wish you had called me before you put this interesting bathroom in.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's shift a little bit. Excuse me. This is interesting. So you mentioned contact and making a contact. So I'm curious. Looking at your website, you've got every single social media platform in the world that's out there. You know, you're posting content to each. I'm curious. Like, do you have a personal favorite? Like, what's the way that most people find you and understand how you can engage with them? And what's that look like for you from a social platform?
I would say for me, it's Instagram.
Okay.
I actually do get a lot of clients each year through Instagram, and I'll meet people every once in a while. I go, why do you look familiar? And like, oh, I follow you on Instagram. I really like your content. I'm like, that I love. I love that I'm a very visual person,
Yeah.
so I love how visual Instagram is. It tends to be, to me, a little bit more positive, and uplifting, scrolling through and seeing pictures of beautiful homes and people's families. And so I would say that's where I probably connect with people more from a social media standpoint, would be
Okay.
on Instagram.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So it's easy, I would say. You know, for either across the top, you're watching the reels, right? And you know, I'm sure you're putting out some reels that people can see. And you know, I think as you scroll up and down throughout, I think one of the things that, as we talk to contractors, that it makes sense for them is it helps for people to develop a relationship with you without really interacting with you. So it gives them the chance to meet you and learn and know who you are and go, yeah, I really like her values. I want to do business with her. You know, the same thing with contractors, right? Hey, look at some of the work, but not just the work, but who are the people that are doing the work? You know, so it lets you mature that relationship a lot more quickly by having that engagement.
And I almost think that, to me, is almost a Pittsburgh thing. Like, I feel like coming from Pittsburgh, people are so connected. They want to work with hometown people. They want to know more than just the work you do, but a little bit about your life and that
Right.
you're, you know, a good person. I feel like they like those relationships, and that to me has always seemed like a very Pittsburgh interconnected thing.
Right. And I think at that point too, though, they're doing business with you and your brand, and the more that they can understand what that is, and there's a lot that, you know, to your point, family, what you do for fun, you know, what are some of the boards that you support, what are the nonprofits that you're engaged with, you know, did you go to a charity event that's on your Instagram feed, you know, things like that really separate you. I always tell contractors, like, I go to their website, and the first thing I'm looking for is how do I get to their social feeds from their website, right? Because that's where you learn more about people. You don't from the cookie cutter website that everybody has. You learn more by seeing them interact with their clients, by what their brand looks like, you know, what their values are, how they're engaging. But you know, if you're middle of the stack, you know, whether it's realty or whether it's contracting, I think it's because you don't have an investment into that social platform and telling your story. It's a good way for people to meet you and know you. So. You know, I know you do a ton with the Lux site and then also all of your social platforms, and your daughters are engaged with helping you with it. And
They are. They're going to get into real estate with me. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, they're on the heels of it. So it's coming.
That's great.
So I'm really, really excited about that.
Not-
And they're excited.
not an easy task to do all that you guys do. So commend you. Well, as we wrap things up, any parting words? Like, how do people find you? What's the best way to engage you?
Sure. So on pretty much every social media channel, I am at Swickley Homes, and my website, swickley.realestate. have a pretty basic name, so if you Google Robyn Jones, you might get a few different people. But yeah, I mean, check out my website. I do have a YouTube channel as well. I'm not as great about posting videos unless they're of beautiful homes or my children. That's pretty much my life these days.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I'd love to connect with some other people in the community. And if you have any questions about Pittsburgh or Swickley, like I said, I'm born and raised 4th generation Swickley, so I know a little bit
Been there,
about the
done that.
area.
Yeah, yeah, good for you. Well, you're going to be our tour guide then.
Yes, I'd love it.
We'll take you up on it. So, guys, it's Robyn Jones with a Y, Robyn. If you're searching for her on social media platforms or on her website. Appreciate everybody joining for episode 3. We look forward to having you back for episode 4. We've got some really good guests lined up. Appreciate everybody's time, and thanks again.